Hey Star Trek fans, Dan Gunther here, bringing you a new issue of the Star Trek Year 5 comic. I'm going to be talking about issue number 13. Star Trek Year 5 has been an excellent series. There's been a great variety of storytelling with the crew dealing with Tholians, visiting an aquatic planet, an interesting love affair for Sulu, and even a recent run-in with Gary 7, with the Enterprise being on the opposite side of a conflict with him, which was pretty daring, and it seems as though there's going to be more of that story to come too. So definitely interested to see where that goes. In this issue, however, we see the Enterprise return to Federation space towards the end of its 5-year mission. However, the Federation that the Enterprise returns to is very different than the one it left, it seems. So not only are there cosmetic differences, we have sleeker starships with the new style warp engines that we'll see in Star Trek the Motion Picture and forward. The uniforms are also different. They have the new pajama uniforms that they're commonly referred to in the motion picture as. But ideologically as well, some of what they come back to is a bit of a shock. There's kind of evidence of some things happening behind the scenes, and things aren't quite exactly what they seem. It seems as though there's kind of a xenophobic element that is poised to win the next Federation presidential election. And there's also a subplot where Spock and McCoy are kind of dealing with what seems to be experiments being performed on officers of Starfleet who have returned from the 5-year mission injured or ill, which this part of the story is really dark, and I'm really curious to see where it goes. Definitely some hanging story elements there that I'm really curious about. It definitely seems like this is not the Starfleet and not the Federation we're used to. And I want to talk a little bit about that, and specifically the type of storytelling that this story seems to be doing, which kind of falls in line with a lot of what Star Trek has done in recent years. Star Trek of the past can really be seen as, here's the model of a perfect society, this is what we're aspiring to, this is what the end result is, all the humans are at peace with each other, there's nothing wrong, all that sort of thing. We got some darker turns to that, of course, with, Badmirals that we see in TNG and Star Trek Insurrection in particular, and of course the introduction of Section 31 in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. However, for the most part, the Federation are the good guys. In this one, however, we see a bit of storytelling that says that the Federation may not be the good guys, or at least there's an element within it that is kind of perverting the Federation's central ideals, and it seems like it's going to be up to Kirk and his crew and like-minded people such as Ariel Shaw, who we see in this issue. You may remember her from the TOS episode Court Martial, and it seems like these elements are going to have to fight back against that. That seems to be where this story is going. And I want to say I don't have a problem with this style of storytelling. If anything, it makes some of these issues more poignant when the people telling the stories aren't saying like, oh, we're perfect. You have to get to where we are to be perfect. But they're illustrating their lack of perfection and the issues that still need to be resolved in their society, which I think resonates very well for what we're seeing today with things like Black Lives Matter and issues of inequality and that sort of thing. I think there was a tendency in the 90s after the Berlin Wall fell, there was this kind of idea that, oh, things are on the up and up, things are getting better, society's getting more peaceful. And from a certain perspective, that seemed to be the case. But, if you were someone on the fringes of society or in a minority, that wasn't the case. And I feel like most of society is kind of waking up to that idea now, or has in the last few years. And this has kind of morphed the storytelling of Star Trek. The modern Star Trek seems to take that tack that, we're not perfect. Things aren't necessarily just automatically better in the future. We have to work towards that. And that seems to be kind of where the idea of this story is coming from. This issue in particular, I want to praise things like the artwork. I think the artwork is absolutely gorgeous in this. I'm really invested in this story. It really feels like a homecoming for the Enterprise. They cross the border into Federation space, and there's basically a fleet waiting for them. And, it really does feel like a grand homecoming for one of the Federation's premier ships. This splash page, for example, this 2-page spread is absolutely gorgeous. If you look in the background, there's some, rough shapes for starships, but in the foreground, there's a lot of really familiar designs. I see Soyuz classes, I see Miranda classes and NX class starships. And of course, the flagship, the USS Theseus, is front and center here. So really gorgeous artwork in this issue. There's a couple little issues I take with some of the choices by the writers. At one point, the political movement that is kind of this xenophobic movement is likened to the Cyrenites on Vulcan, and they don't really get into the ideologies of the Cyrenites, but they do say, it's a small group like the Cyrenites were. But recently, having watched season 4 of Enterprise, the implication seems to be that the Cyrenites are the true followers of Surak, and their ideology kind of spreads all over the planet. So I don't know if you can call them a small group that doesn't recruit members, but, little tiny thing there. I have to say, generally speaking, the writing is excellent. I do notice there's more dialogue in the Year 5 comics than there has been generally in most Star Trek comics lately. And I think this is to its benefit. It really feels like kind of a hearkening back to the deep storylines of like the DC comic run and comics of that age, which I really appreciate. I'm really enjoying this story. Again, it's kind of the first part in an ongoing storyline that's going to continue. So curious to see where it goes. There's a lot of things set up here. I think it's really worth your time to pick this issue up. It's this whole series, Year 5, has been very excellent, and I want to really call out the writers and the artists for these. So this particular issue was written by Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, with art by Angel Hernandez. And Angel Hernandez is another artist that I've really enjoyed their work for a long time, and it really shines through here. So great stuff from all of the creatives involved in this. So top marks to Year 5 issue number 13. I've really enjoyed this series. The stories keep getting better and better. So even though I'm a little curious about the story with Spock and McCoy and where that's going, and I'm a little, hesitant about this story and what it's going to reveal, I think I trust these guys to come up with a strong ending, because, they haven't let me down yet. So cheers to Star Trek Year 5. Pick up this issue. It's as good as anything in this series has been, which is high praise because this series has been excellent. But I want to hear from you. If you have picked up issue number 13, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Or if you've read any of Year 5 prior to this, I'd love to hear from you as well. What do you think of the series? And how do you think it's going so far? And where do you think it's going in the future? All of that stuff. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks, of course, to the Patreon supporters for their help in bringing these videos to you. I really do appreciate it. We have some new supporters this month, so thank you so much. It really is a huge help. With the whole COVID-19 thing going on, I don't have kind of regular work going on right now, so this really does help, going above and beyond what I'm able to make otherwise. So thank you so much. I really, truly do appreciate it. But even if you are not able to contribute to the Patreon, I do appreciate you just watching. And if you think this video is worth it, giving it a like, a share, and a subscribe would really help as well. And look forward to more comic reviews in the future. I do enjoy doing these. I will be doing, of course, episode reviews of Lower Decks and book reviews and all that sort of stuff. And of course, Bruce and I have Positively Trek, where we're just now rolling out our new book show, which will go up, or the first episode of which will go up on Friday of this week. And then we have our episode review show for Lower Decks as well. So stay tuned for all of that. And thank you all again for watching. Live long and prosper.